Hey nerds, just a quick heads up. Over the next couple weeks, we are going to be taking a couple weeks off, recharging, enjoying some time with the families on holidays. So we're going to be dropping a couple of replay episodes, some of our personal favorites from the show so far that we've done. We really hope you enjoy revisiting these conversations, and we will be back soon to review the new Superman movie once that comes out. So until then, stay nerdy. Well, hello, dear listeners, and welcome back to another episode of the Reforming Nerdom podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jordan Cecile, and I am joined today by the one and only P. Nate, a.k.a. Pastor Nate, a.k.a. Nathaniel P. Wright. Nate, how are you?
Great. I'm happy to be here, and nice to be landed and back home and not traveling. So, yeah, I'm doing well.
Very cool. And we're also joined by the one and only Ben of the Cloth, a.k.a. Benjamin, a.k.a. Ben Emery. Ben, how are you?
Doing just fine. Thanks for asking.
Very cool. And we are joined by a very special guest today. Many of you probably know him online as the internet's #1 proponent of Arminian theology. Your Calvinist, actually, the one and only Keith Foskey. Keith, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, and I thank you guys for having me on. I look forward to a fun conversation.
Yeah, you know what? I am as well. And this whole thing kind of came about as those who are listening or watching right now, you can see from the title that this is going to be about Superman. And this all happened because one of our patrons saw that you were talking about Superman, the upcoming James Gunn movie. I think was it a Michael Foster? Was it on his thread on Twitter or something like that you were responding to?
Yeah, we went back and forth about it for a bit.
Yeah. So I saw that, and then it was like, well, Keith, we just so happen to have a nerd podcast where we would love to talk about Superman. So, yeah, we're thrilled that you can join us because on that tweet you did say that you are an expert in Superman amongst Reformed Christians. So.
Absolutely. And I have a nerd podcast too, but it's just not supposed to be. So it's
Okay.
like you guys haven't, you're on purpose. I have a
Yes.
nerd podcast just because I'm a nerd. So
Well, that's good. You know what? It's more fun when it just kind of like bleeds out of everything you do, because I think that's something that we often get made fun of, because it's just, we'll be at church. Like if you don't know, Nate and Ben are pastors at our church. I'm a member of the church, and we'll often just after a service, it's like, hey, Nate, good sermon. So what about that new Superman trailer? And and like that actually happens, and it's like that's not a joke whatsoever, and we get into debates about who's
unironically.
Yeah, like it actually happens. So we're happy to have you among us, because this is especially Superman. This is a topic that I'm really excited about, being a big Superman fan. Probably not as big as you. I will not try to take the crown as the authority on it, but definitely a big fan.
This should be fun for me. So we were just talking a little bit before the show, before we hit record, prepping for high score, and you had mentioned how you kind of had some major blind spots in your nerddom, and for me, Superman is a clear blind spot for me. So I am here as a just a like willing sort of, I'm basically in the audience here. So
yeah, Ben is our resident like Marvel apologist, even though I like Marvel, but Nate and I are definitely our DC guys. So we'll get to which one you prefer in a second, Keith. But why don't you just even just take a second to introduce yourself, tell people who you are, where you're at, a little bit about your content that you create, just so our listeners get a better idea who you are.
Yeah, my name is Keith Foskey. I'm the pastor of Sovereign Grace Family Church in Jacksonville, Florida, where I've served for the last 18 years. And so been there for a while. Actually, it's the church I grew up in. It's kind of a long story. Won't get into that. But I'm thankful to live and continue to serve and minister in my hometown. And a few years ago, I started, I've always loved comedy. So I started doing some comedy stuff online, making funny videos, making TikTok videos, and particularly ones that make fun of denominational distinctives and really draw out some of the peculiarities that exist in different denominations. And some people thought that was funny, and videos went out and kind of made an impact.
Some people probably didn't think it was funny.
Oh, the Methodists absolutely love me, and I'm so thankful to have such a strong following in the United Methodist Church. No, actually, it's so funny because I'll get messages from Methodist because I give the Methodists a hard time, and I should because they're not only are they Arminian, but they're progressive Arminian, which is like just a double dose of crazy. And so anyway, I'll get messages from conservative Methodists, like emails, and they're like, "Don't tell anyone I said this, but I love you." So like, and those are the best. The best compliment I ever received ever, and I'll never forget it, was a guy sent me a message. He says, "Hey, you're my grandmother's favorite TikToker." And I don't know who that dude's grandmother is, but that pleased me so
Yeah.
much to
Yeah.
know that there's an elderly woman somewhere who's just digging what I do. And I just think that's
On
all that
TikTok, no less.
on TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so that's, people who know me, my wife and I do a live show on Friday nights where we answer Bible questions, particularly ministerial questions, because we've been in ministry for a long time, and we try to minister to pastors who have questions and are having difficulty. She ministers to pastors' wives and stuff. So that's a part of the ministry a lot of people don't know about, but we're fairly thankful for that God's opened up a door for that.
Very cool. What does your wife think about your passion for nerddom?
My wife is hilarious, but she's not a nerd. Okay. I was a professional magician when I met my wife. You want to talk about nerds? Let's get down.
Wow.
Okay. I was a professional magician, and she was a star softball player. She actually went to college on a scholarship. So it literally was a nerd jock connection. Like my wife was the jock. She would talk about sports. She's taken me to more football games than I've ever wanted to go to. I make her watch Superman 4 and tell her why it's a great movie, even though it's awful. It's my favorite. So like that's it's so different. So she's not a nerd, but she's hilarious, and she helps me write all my scripts.
That's hilarious.
She writes so many funny jokes. So that's the best part of that. Yeah.
So little known fact, my little side job when I was like 13, 14, 15 was I did magic shows at kids' birthday parties.
Awesome.
That's like a little nerd. I don't think I've ever even shared that publicly. So there you go.
What was
Well,
your name?
dude, if we
What was
ever
your name,
meet,
Nate?
I didn't actually have a name,
Aw.
but I jokingly said that it was Nate the Magnificent just because that seems
So
so
when you're
cliche.
doing magic at birthday parties, like, are you just a clown at that point?
okay, there's a very clear distinction between magician and clown,
Thank you.
And when we talk about cool factor,
Yeah.
there's a line that you don't cross. If you're a magician, you're not now clowns do magic, but magicians are not clowns. So that's
I know I won't put you on the spot.
My
but
apologies.
what is like the coolest magic trick that you can do? You don't have to do it right now. You might not have the stuff, but like what's
Wait.
something?
Okay, so I take this
Oh,
I
boys.
can't.
Yes.
Oh, wait. How about that?
Get out of here. All right, black magic, Steven. Get out of here.
Well done. For all of our podcast listeners, as opposed to YouTube
Yeah.
viewers, you just got to trust us. Keith was he was a
just
magician.
magically
Head on
stuck
over
the
to
crayon
the
up his
YouTube.
nose, out his mouth. There it is.
I was gonna do a different one, but I realized I had on headphones and it wouldn't work.
That is fantastic. That's a true master of his craft. We're on the spot like that. You just did that, and that was very convincing. As far as I'm concerned, you just did that. So, all right. Well, there you have it, listeners and viewers. That is a little bit about Keith. And before we get into our topic of the show, I just want to remind everybody that we are Reforming Nerdom. We get together each and every week to talk about all things nerd culture and all from an unapologetically Christian worldview. You can check us out on YouTube, podcast services, and if you are looking to connect with a bunch of super awesome Christian nerds, you can come and join us over at Patreon, where you will get access to our Discord server, where we're talking tech, movies, books, video games, and now, yes, even Lego. And this can all be yours for $2 a month, right? You can access what is quickly becoming the world's go-to place for Christian nerds to nerd out. And just on that note of Lego, boys, I have it here. I'm going to show you.
Oh, he brought it.
Oh,
Beautiful.
nice.
Beautiful.
So I don't want to, just because the mic's in the way, but I just want to see, like, you can open it up. It has like a full interior that he did. If you guys can see that, I don't know how much you can see. It's in the frame there, but this thing is
It's a work of art.
to one of our our
So did somebody make that and send it to you?
no, I made that.
Oh,
No,
you
one
made
of
that.
our
Oh,
one of
okay.
our sponsors, Brent Boffman of Boffman Bricks. He makes custom Lego mocks, and he was gracious enough to send me the plans for his Millennium Falcon. So I bought all the Lego and spent probably, oh boy, I'm gonna say like 20 to 25 hours building it.
Nice.
So, anyways, there's
Totally worth it.
I
Oh,
100.
yeah.
Well, now it's not even a question of whether it was worth it. It's just like, well, now what's the next one I'm gonna do?
But I
That's
mean, you
the
just
the
spent
next thing.
you just spent 20
obviously
to
it's a
25
TIE fighter
hours
so that you can have
creating a
space
work
battles.
of art. Yeah.
What was that, Ben?
I should say you spent 20 to 25 hours creating a work of art.
It's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
It truly is. So, anyways, if you're up for that kind of stuff, you want to chat, we would love to see you over on Discord. And even for those who might be in the London area, we're actually planning a meetup in February. We're gonna go see, grab some dinner and go see the new Captain America movie, which I have increasingly lower
Just looks worse
expectations
and
for.
worse. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Wow, it is getting worse and worse.
It needs to premiere on Tubi or like Voodoo or something. It doesn't like
It's interesting because one of the articles I saw about it, where they keep trying to talk about projected earnings for it, and I don't remember a movie coming out where they were trying to like get ahead of a thing of talk about projected earnings the way they are with this. It just tells me that they're trying to make people think like, oh no, trust me, everybody's gonna love it, guys. Go see it. You should. Everybody's going to. And I don't know. I'm gonna see it. We're all gonna go see it, but I just have low hopes.
they could make a lot of money if they took the new Snow White and the new Captain America and put them in a Romeo and Juliet just so we could watch them both die.
Oh,
Just kill two birds with one stone. Yeah.
because did you see what he said, Anthony Mackie, just this week? He was
Yes.
saying Captain America needs to be less about America. Like,
Nice.
right? Like, get out
Just
of
give
here.
us the movie we want. What we all really want is JD Vance to play Captain America, and that's what we all really want.
And Trump turns into the Red Hulk.
Now that's the dream team right there.
I see JD Vance as Nick Fury,
Ooh.
and
Yeah.
I think I think the Red Hulk Trump is a good idea. No, Captain America would be Elon.
The most eccentric Captain
yeah.
America of all time.
And he's just like, screw it, and takes his wings and flies to Mars.
Yeah.
We're gonna be Captain Mars.
That's right. All right. Well, this is, I think, Keith, a good opportunity for us to do what type of nerd are you? So this is something we ask each of our guests, and we're just going to ask you some rapid fire questions to try and get an idea of what type of nerd you are, the type of stuff that you're into.
These are the same questions we ask everybody.
Yeah, we ask everybody the same questions.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah, don't think too hard about it.
you ready? Here we go.
Mhm.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars,
Lord of the Rings or Narnia?
Lord of the Rings,
Marvel or DC?
DC,
Favorite video game console of all time?
Nintendo NES,
Good choice. Favorite cartoon growing up?
Thundercats,
Oh, nice.
Favorite 80s action hero?
Kit.
Okay. Okay.
The car was a character.
Yeah,
Don't come at me.
All right. All right. And favorite nerd activity?
I'm a movie watcher, but that's just not good enough. But that's it. I love to watch movies. I
That's
like to
fine.
watch movies I've already seen, so I can fall in love with secondary characters who aren't really that interesting, but they become more interesting on the fourth or fifth time you see them. Like Louis Scully from Ghostbusters. That dude is awesome.
Okay.
All right, yeah. So
Good answer.
Hey,
Deep
that's-
cut answers.
that is totally permissible. Watching movies is nerdy. What would you say is your favorite like film property of all time? Like you just mentioned Ghostbusters, that's brilliant. You obviously like Superman, but like what is your
well, are you asking my favorite movie or my favorite property in the sense of like
I guess it's
franchise.
Dynasty?
series? Because like I think like Lord of the Rings, there's Jurassic Park, there's Back to the Future. Like what would be your favorite property?
Back to the Future is the greatest, and here's why.
Oh.
Because you can say Back to the Future is my favorite sci-fi movie. Okay,
Mhm.
you can say it's my favorite historical movie. Okay, you can say it's my favorite Western. You can go Back to the Future 3. You can say it's my favorite future movie, right? You can also say it's my favorite apocalypse movie because you got part 2 where there's this adverse timeline where Biff Tannen is now the Antichrist. So you've got all of the genres in one 3-part film, which is a perfect series.
High school drama. High school
Perfect.
drama.
Absolutely.
That's right.
You got a love story. You have just it's all
Between
awesome.
Marty and his mom.
You have a young you have a young Leah Thompson and 2 Jennifers to choose from. My wife's name is Jennifer, and she's more beautiful than all of them. But yeah. So there's so much about Back to the Future that makes it a great property. I've met Tom Wilson. I have pictures with him. He's a stand-up comedian, and he's one of my favorite like unsung stand-ups. He's the guy who played Biff Tannen. He's an actual stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
And he's also a musician, and he's super talented. So
Yeah, I didn't. It was actually just somewhat recently when I was doing some reading on Back to the Future. I didn't know there was all that like legal controversy around the guy who played his dad,
Crispin Glover. An entire legal precedent was set but because they used his likeness in part 2 without paying him, without his permission. So it created an entire sub issue within, which is now a big deal because in AI they can take your face and make it do anything.
I remember that was a big deal with Peter Cushing when they used his likeness in Rogue One after he had died, and his estate was like, "Hey, like, what
did they not want him doing that, or did they not want Disney to do that with him?
No, they didn't pay them.
Oh, they didn't. Oh, wow.
What's interesting is when James Earl Jones died, he gave the rights to his voice to all future projects because of that same thing. Like he gave that.
Like he's allowing them to use.
Yeah, he's allowing them to use his likeness, or not his likeness, but his voice, because it was the voice of Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
which is like that's pretty cool. Cool.
Yeah,
it's
very
cool.
cool.
Games.
Yeah.
You're down in Florida, Keith. I remember going to Universal Studios when I was a kid, and that Back to the Future ride was one of my favorite. And
it's no longer there.
I know.
It's heartbreaking.
I've been back since it's been gone.
The fact that they replaced Back to the Future and they put in something like Harry Potter.
Wasn't it I think didn't they put a Simpsons ride? Actually,
yeah, you're right. I would just say
future was
it's like ugh.
Yeah.
Do you, Keith, think there could ever be a remake or a sequel to those movies? Would you want them? And if they could do it, are there actors that you think? Because I have in my mind who I think would be perfect for those roles if they ever did it. But do you think it should or should not ever be?
Jordan, you just want Zac Efron in everything.
Okay.
Well, he's in his dreams. So.
Well, Zac Efron, I would say he used to be handsome, but now he looks like a troll or something because he keeps messing up his face. But no, I have my guys who I would want to be Marty and the Doc. But do you even think that should ever happen?
I'm not a reboot remake guy. I think perfect movies should be left alone. But if you said, okay, we're gonna do this, I saw something somewhere where somebody had the idea. So this is not original to me. That somebody had the idea of Tom Holland and Iron Man,
Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Jr. Yeah,
yep.
Tom Holland and Robert Downey Jr. playing the part of Marty and Doc, and they do have such an interesting chemistry in the Marvel movies that I think, if anything, it would not be what we got with Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd, but it would be its own thing that could be interesting.
Yeah, could be an interesting
take.
Yeah.
That is exactly who I would say, because I saw it was a deep fake of when they were.
That's what it was. Yeah,
when they were in the high school, and it showed their faces in it, and people were like, "Wait, is this real?" Because like this actually could be. And you saw how they work together, and
and Tom Holland's going to be 40 years old and still able to play a teenager. So it can continue.
It's true. All right. Well, that's great. So how about before we get into our topic of the show, let's just do a quick read or hear an ad from one of our sponsors.
Have you ever opened your internet browser in search of quality Christian books, only to find yourself wading through page after page of Joel Osteen books, Nerf guns, and tacky wall art? Thousand Generations Print Company is here to save the day. With a unique family-owned approach, quick 24-hour processing, a commitment to providing heretic-free literature, and real human customer service, they focus on offering books that not only enlighten but align with orthodox Christian teachings. And, being conveniently located in southern Ontario, there's no more need to sell your left kidney to pay for shipping within Canada. Visit at actuallychristianbooks.com. Again, that's actuallychristianbooks.com. And order yourself anything from Haunted Cosmos to Sir Battle-Lot and use promo code NERDOM, that's NERDOM, all caps, and receive 10% off your next order. Thousand Generations Print Company, books for building, books for battling, for 1,000 generations.
All right, well, welcome back. All right, it is now time for our topic of the show, where we're going to be discussing Superman with the self-proclaimed, in your own words, self-proclaimed, I have your tweet here, Keith, the self-proclaimed Superman authority among Reformed nerds. And so in it, you were talking about this new Superman movie. And so what I was hoping we could talk about was try to figure out and nail down who is the best Superman, what is the best Superman property, because again, is that a movie or is it a TV show? Superman's been really popular on TV.
Or a comic, or a
comic,
yeah.
best Lex Luthor, and then also can James Gunn make a good movie? But before we even get into that, I just want to read off some stats here. I mean, Superman is a cultural icon. There's just tons of impact that he's had, very, very successful. So just for those who might have grown up living under a rock, some stats and some maybe some facts that people didn't know about. But Superman, it was created in 1938 by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. First appeared in Action Comics #1 in June of 1938. He is widely considered the first true superhero. And did you guys know that Superman was originally conceived as a villain in a short story before evolving into a hero? Did you guys know that?
That I did not know.
There you go. I didn't either. There are over 15,000 comic issues published across the various series. There have been 10 live-action Superman movies to date. Then there's the highest grossing. What do you think is the highest grossing Superman movie of all time?
Is
in real dollars, or
I think this is probably accounting for inflation. So which one, like made the most money accounting for inflation, if all things being equal?
Probably
have
Man
to
of Steel.
I have to say 78, but that's accounting for inflation. I think 78.
Man of Steel.
Oh, okay.
Yep, 668 million. Now, again, like perhaps that's not accounting for inflation, but I mean, I know less about this 1978 Superman the movie, so we'll.
Oh, well, we're gonna go to school today.
I think it's just like the 80s. The 80s did so much for cinema in terms of like dollars. Like people just started going to the movies really in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like all the top grossing movies, using inflation. Like that's when they start.
All right, what do we got? Oh yeah, total box office revenue from Superman movies exceeds $3.2 billion. There have been many TV shows, the animated series, Smallville, Lois and Clark, and then even the most recent, which I think just came to an end, Superman and Lois. The most expensive comic ever sold was Action Comics #1. Graded copy sold for $3.2 million. Nate, a little bit more than what you got for all your comics you sold, I think.
Sure.
But
A lot more.
Yeah, that's a
lot
good
more.
Good haul there. And then the first superhero to receive a feature film was Superman and the Mole Men in 1951.
Wow.
And it was Superman in 1978 that really kicked off the superhero boom in cinema. And Superman also holds multiple Guinness World Records for the longest running comic book series. So, Keith, first off, where do you rank Superman in the pantheon of superheroes?
#1, absolutely.
Yeah. Why do you think Superman? Because a lot of people hate on Superman. He's too powerful. He's like too nice. Like what would you
Too
say?
goody.
Yeah, he's a goody two shoe. But why would you say he is the #1 superhero of all time?
This is obviously this is subjective, and it has a lot to do with like want. It's like Jerry Seinfeld said when when you're a kid, Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, these are not fantasies, these are options, right? This is like, who am I going to be, right? And I think he's nailed that, because growing up in the 80s, we were introduced to all these wonderful characters, and different characters appeal to different people because of different sensibilities. And Batman and Superman sat on two different spectrums, and this is honestly the way people saw it. Superman was who you wanted to be. Batman was who you thought you could be. All you needed was money, time, and talent, right? Like Batman was an option. Like, you really could be that if you had enough money and had enough physicality and had all those things, right? Like, Batman was real. Superman was the ideal. And why, when Superman first came out, he didn't fly, he jumped. He was not impervious, he was just really strong. He was not, the powers evolved through the decades very quickly, but they evolved into strange powers like Superman 2, where he had a cellophane S that he threw at Zod, and that was stupid. But all these things happened because what they were injecting into the Superman character was what everybody wanted. People want to have the power to deal with the problems in a way that is miraculous and efficient and powerful. He can fly around the world fast enough to turn time back. All of these things are Superman is an ideal character. And that's why they keep adding powers to him, is because it's like he is the Ubermensch, the Superman, right? And so every other character is in one way or another trying to be that. Iron Man has to put on a suit to be impervious. Superman doesn't need a suit. Iron Man has to have rockets to fly. Superman doesn't need that. All these other things that all the other characters want to be, Superman has by nature. And so one character might have, super hearing, and he becomes the Daredevil, right? Like, cause he can't see, and he's obviously an acrobat and all these things, but he's not Superman. Superman is the ideal that all the others try to live up to. So that's why I say he's my favorite.
Okay. Now,
Nice.
what would you say to somebody though who says that, like, it's just lazy writing, in that it's like, oh well, he's super powerful, you can't stop him. I know he introduced obviously kryptonite, and there's other things that he isn't can't fight off the easiest, but like, what would you say to somebody who's just like, well, that's just lazy, like, of course Superman's gonna win, like, look how powerful he is, he can do everything.
Superman's the hardest character to write for. And so the idea that it's lazy, it's not lazy, it's hard. It's hard to make a good Superman story because he's so powerful. I mean, you can't make a superhero or you can't make a Superman movie where Superman's dealing with bank robbers. I mean, like, really? Who cares, right? Like he's just, I mean, that there's
Which
no,
is what a lot of the like old, like, I don't know, whatever they are, like 50s,
Spider-Man,
60s cartoons.
Yeah, George,
Superman or him just like beating up bank robbers and stuff.
that's right. George Reeves, when he had the old TV show, and then of course Kirk Allen, who came before him, and all of the serials, he was dealing with mobsters and bank robbers and stuff, and that quickly became like, who cares, right? Like, he's Superman. There's a scene in Superman 1, 78, Superman 78. That's what I call it, but it's the first Christopher Reeves. There's a scene where he lands on a boat, and a guy hits him with a crowbar, and the crowbar just goes ding, 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 ding. It's like a cartoon sound, like, that old like boy, yo, 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 yo. And Superman, Christopher Reeves, looks at him and goes, bad vibrations. It's a corny line, but it's just one of those proof texts of saying, okay, Superman has no problem with this, right? So we have to provide
with regular goons. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have to create people like
Zod
and he has to fight other Kryptonians, or he has to fight interdimensional characters like and I can't think of his name. He had the red eyes and he's gray, and I can't think of his name.
Doomsday.
Right now. No, it's not Doomsday. Doomsday
No?
was the one who killed him.
Darkseid?
Darkseid, yeah. So you got Darkseid, who's an interdimensional tyrant. You've got Zod, who's a Kryptonian warlord. You've got all these different characters because nobody on Earth is a true opposition to Superman, right?
Oh.
Except for maybe Batman, because of Batman's hyper intelligence and all that. So I think I don't think it's lazy. I think it's hard. That's my point. It's hard to write for Superman
Yeah.
because of how powerful he is.
So the little Superman that I've, consumed and whatever, but I think Superman is at its best when it plays on the tension of him kind of knowing that he's better than everybody else and then having
Yeah.
to kind of live with that fact and struggle with like, well, it actually kind of sucks to be surrounded by people that are inferior to me and I got to figure out how to live in this world sort of thing. So I think
There's
that's actually the other side of like, not just like the beating up all the bad guys, kind of typical side of Superman, but like the inner turmoil or whatever of Superman it does actually make it interesting also.
Yeah, the best part of Superman, what you just said, and this is the thing that people often miss. The best part of Superman is that it is at its heart, it's a love story.
Yeah.
Superman wants to love Lois, but he has to be Superman. Superman is his power, Clark is who he is, and Clark loves Lois, so he has to decide, and this is what Superman 2 was all about. He has to decide, is it more important to love the woman that I love or save the world that I live in? And the world needs me, but I want her. Right? So there's a love story behind it that's real, and that's why Lois and Clark, and then later Superman and Lois. It puts her in the title because the people who are writing the story understand how valuable she is to his character.
One of my favorite Superman side stories of all time was a comic book series called Injustice, where the storyline is that the Joker kills Lois, and it sort of snaps Superman, and he basically just begins to rule the world, and he becomes sort of a tyrant, not in a cruel sense, but in a I'm the only one powerful enough to bring order to
I'm
the
here
chaos.
for your good. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And it really wrestles with that whole idea. And so now you have, Batman and the rest of the Justice League have to go to a different timeline and get the Superman from that timeline to come in and battle the Superman from this timeline. It's kind of strange, but it was really interesting to show that she was sort of his grounding
Yep.
in that she's what kept him human. And it also wrestled with everything you were talking about, Ben, and that idea that he knows he's the most powerful, and he actually knows also what's best for the world. And if you play those two things out to their logical conclusion, it's sort of like, well, I should just rule them then. And it was a really interesting series.
Yeah, and I think Superman's interesting too, like you said, Keith, about like for Superman, he like his actual identity is Superman. Like he is Superman, and Clark Kent is actually his alter ego. Not right. He's not like a regular guy.
Right. He wasn't a
He
regular
puts on a
guy who got
mask.
powers.
Like Clark Kent is his mask, right? Not Spider-Man putting on a Spider-Man mask.
But there's I understand what you're saying, but I'm gonna add a nuance to that because the again, I compare Superman and Batman a lot, and the Superman is the real person is Clark because he grew up in Kansas. He grew up the son of Jonathan and Martha Kent. He grew up as that guy. That's who he wants to be.
I was gonna say, I'd say that's who he wants to be.
That's who he wants
but he
to
knows
be.
that he actually is Superman.
That's right. Where Batman wants to be Batman.
Yeah.
Right. There's a great Batman. By the way, Batman's number 2. If you want to know who my number 2 is, and Batman there's a great comic panel, and I don't remember what comic it's from, but I have tons of comic books in my bedroom, but it's in one of them where Batman is Bruce Wayne is wearing the suit, and Alfred asks him, "Why are you like you're not going anywhere?" And he goes, "I know." But he just put the suit on because that's who he is. Like that's that was him. And so for Bruce Wayne is not real because Bruce Wayne died when his parents died.
Right.
Like Bruce Wayne is dead. And he puts on that character to go out and do the things that Bruce Wayne has to do so that he can be Batman, which is who he really is. Clark puts on the suit because he has to do that, but he wants to be Clark. Like he wants to be the Kansas farm boy who falls in love with Lois, has children. There's a great, the CW did amazing with the crossovers with Arrow and Flash, and they pulled in the Smallville character, and there's a scene where the Smallville Superman. I forget his name, but he was
Tom
great.
Welling. Tom
Yeah,
Welling.
Tom Welling, where he had given up his power so that he could be a father,
Ah.
and Luther comes to him and he goes, "You were a god," and he goes, "Yeah, but it's not more important than this,
Yeah.
right? Like I gave it up because I wanted this."
Did you ever watch Smallville? Were you a Smallville fan?
I was a huge Smallville fan in the beginning.
Yeah.
My problem is I don't have time. My time, I know it sounds so cheesy, but ministry's hard, ministry's busy, and so giving myself to like long series
Yeah.
just wears me out. My wife and I usually pick one show at a time that we walk through,
Mhm.
and I did a couple of seasons of Smallville, and I just lost the time to do it. She wanted to watch something else, so we had to move on. So I
So
haven't seen all of them.
that's the thing I love about
You're like
Smallville.
Superman. It's not more important than this.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's what I love about Smallville is it really I think that show just generally captures that that tension where he just wants to be on the football team. He just wants
That's
to
right.
date Lana Lang. He just wants to be a normal kid. He just wants to and like that's where you really see that in Smallville where it's just he is just a kid growing up in Kansas and he just wants to be a kid, but his dad like it just tells him it's like, well, no, like you're more than this. Like you but he wasn't ready for that yet. So it's just interesting seeing how he's developing his powers, how he is trying to understand like who he is and how he can function as this like OP superhero, but also he is just a kid from Kansas.
And they did such a good job of bringing in other characters. Again, the CW, as weird as it sounds, they did such a good job with the money they had to spend.
Yeah.
Arrow was really good in the beginning. The
Yeah.
Arrow
First season of
story,
Arrow is great.
I mean, the seasons of Arrow got weird because it just did. But the first season was great. And the first season of Smallville was great. Flash was good. This is one thing I'll tell you. I don't like alternate timeline movies that become so weird that you lose any sense of like any sense of concern for the characters because you know they can just go back in time or change the timeline, or these people can't fall in love because in another timeline they're not in love. And it destroys continuity of storytelling when
Yeah.
you start adding all these. This is why I had a really hard time with the multiverse movies. I just don't I don't Marvel ended with Endgame for me.
Mm. Yeah.
I got done, and Endgame was a timeline movie, but
Yeah.
but at the end, I was.
But it
I
had
was
a
done.
resolution.
It did.
It had
Yeah.
some finality. Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say, Keith, is amongst all of these Superman properties, do you have a clear favorite?
Yeah, but my favorite property, Superman property is oh goodness. See, this is where it's tough because if we narrowed it more and said, okay, well, what different thing? I'm a Christopher Reeve purist. I think Christopher Reeve defined several things. I think he defined the Clark Kent character in a way that was unique. I think he defined just seeing him in that suit for the first time. He wasn't wearing fake muscles or anything like that. He just looked like a man that was, his stature and everything was really great. So the Christopher Reeves movies 3 and 4 are ridiculous. 2 is great because of Terrence Stamp. Terrence Stamp's version of Zod was so over the top and so awesome.
Huh.
But 78 is the greatest superhero movie up until the last 10 minutes. The turning back time was not a part of the original script. And
Huh.
that's the part that people don't realize. The turning back time was actually part of the second movie. They filmed 1 and 2 continuously. They filmed it both together. You had Richard Donner who was working on it, and then Richard Lester took over. But
I did not know that.
No,
yeah,
not in life.
they were filmed at the same time. Continuously, just like Back to the Future 2 and 3 were filmed continuously.
Mhm.
This is why you see Zod at the very beginning of Superman 1, and he never comes back into the story of Superman 1 at all. And you're like, well, who is this guy? Why does this matter? Because he's the character of Superman 2. They've already got the actor, they've already got the story, they've already got it lined up. And how Superman 2 was supposed to end was Superman was going to fly back in time and turn back time. But they ended up with a problem at the end of 1, where they ended up putting that at the end of 1, and it just makes the end of 1 somewhat unsatisfying. because rather than Superman being able to save Lois in another way, he flies back in time, and that
Cheats.
yeah, it feels like cheating. Yeah, I would agree. That's the only part of 78 that I hate. Is I wish they would have done and there's an original ending, not quite sure I understand it, so I don't want to get into that, but it would have to me anything else would have been better.
Was anything else filmed or that changed like in the writing room?
I don't know. I can't give you an answer. I recently saw a video where they read the script and they were trying to explain how it was supposed to end, and even that seemed kind of disjointed. So I don't think it was ever filmed. 'Cause but it wasn't the original plan. That seems pretty obvious. So Christopher Reeve, I think who your Superman is defined by when you were born. So like my dad's Superman is George Reeves. My kid's Superman is Henry Cavill. And my Superman is Christopher Reeves.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because as I was thinking about this for the show, like trying to, I put together and some of the qualities that make a good Superman, and so like those things, like physical traits, the presence and personality, acting ability and range, action and heroic. So like how good are they in those flying postures and fighting scenes, and then also just like the Superman factor, like just do they have an aura or a presence of Superman? And so, but it's interesting when you think about Superman as a character, he has evolved over time in different eras. He's a certain thing because, admittedly, like well, we've said on the show a number of times that for us, like Henry Cavill is the epitome of Superman, like because he has the physical presence, he looks like Superman, like we know. Even just like the actor in real life, he seems to embody a lot of those characteristics of Superman. Like he's just a good guy. He actually wants to help people. So like Henry Cavill to us, but then when you actually go and look at like Christopher Reeves as Superman, he is embodying a different era of Superman
That's
where
right.
it's the bumbling, like his Clark persona is like the bumbling fool, kind of not confident. And so for when we see Superman, we think, well, like I joked earlier, like I don't know if I've seen Henry Cavill smile as Superman. And it's just like, just because he has that more somber tone, he's more intense. Like the story, I mean, Zack Snyder's movies have just a way more intense tone to them generally. But so it's interesting, yeah. Like I think it is hard to nail down exactly who is the best because it does change on what era, when you watched it, and all that.
It's not just Superman too. I think it's just like the eras in general, and then also the eras of movie making. It's just like things were different in the 70s. Like the ideal person that you looked up to was different in 1978 than it is in 2010 or whatever, when so
And I do want to add one other thing because I would be remiss if I didn't say this because I said my favorite Christopher Reeves and I still hold to that. 78 is my favorite. But I have a special place in my heart for Lois and Clark because Dean
Agreed.
Cain is such
Yeah.
Dean Cain is
that's
such
my
Honestly.
favorite.
a cool guy. He even liked one of my tweets one time, and I was like on a high for a whole day because he liked one of my tweets. But Dean Cain, he was I think he was the best Clark because he was so in love with Lois. And again, that goes back to the whole idea of Clark being in love with Lois. And his Superman was a reticence. He didn't want to do it, but he did it. And then Lois falls in love with Superman, and Clark hates that because he wants him to love her or wants her to love him. And that's
Yeah.
that's why the show was called Lois and Clark, because it was more about their love story than it was about Superman was like a side character who was annoying to Clark because he doesn't want that. He wants her. And again, going back to that, but no, Dean Cain, by the way, that cast, ridiculous. You had Lane Smith playing Perry White, best Perry White ever by far. You had Terry Hatcher as
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and then Dean Cain, and you're gonna ask me later, and I don't want to give my hand away, but I guess I could say it now. John Shea is the best Lex Luthor ever.
Yeah.
John
So
Shea played Lex Luthor in Lois and Clark. He was the businessman, the tycoon, the sharp-minded. Nothing rattled him, nothing bothered him. I remember one time he was explaining to a guy, he said, I'm the third richest man in the world. And he said, and I'm close. He said, and that's only temporary. He said, I don't have problems. He said, he says, it was just this way of just sort of defining himself. And it was just, he's just like, you don't understand my life, but I don't have problems. Like I make problems, but I don't have them. And it was just such a cool character. So I didn't mean to jump ahead of one of your
No,
questions,
that's okay.
but
I mean, funny enough, I probably not even. I've probably consumed more Lois and Clark than any other Superman property, just because my mom watched it when I was a kid.
yeah,
And so it was just like on in the house. And so we watched it a lot. And I have like a huge fondness for that show. I think Dean Cain was awesome. I don't know the guy's name. I can't remember what you just said, but the Lex Luthor, I liked his Lex Luthor because I find a lot of the Lex Luthors portray him like as this kind of like crazy, eccentric, over the top. And like I kind of picture Luthor as this just like really like knows what he's doing, buttoned up,
More like Kingpin kind of guy. Is that who you?
and yeah. So I don't know. I love Lois and Clark. It's a good show.
Do you like? I know Keith. You said 78 is your favorite, but is Gene Hackman like? Do you like him as Lex Luthor? Because I just watched 78, like Superman 1 and 2, and I couldn't stand Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor.
okay, we're going to disagree, but we're going to disagree only because of this. Gene Hackman, first of all, national treasure. I mean, just the dude is so amazing as an actor. His portrayal of Little Bill in Unforgiven, one of the great unsung just character actors. I mean, he just plays these actors. He gives himself completely to the role. And here's what Gene Hackman did good with Lex Luthor. He was such a narcissist. And that is one thing that I think that he did well, because the whole movie is, I'm the greatest criminal mind of all time. I'm the best. Nobody like that's the way he defines his life, as just being the best at being this thing. And Ned Beatty as Otis, and when Otis Otis is being just goofy as all get out, and I know it's so cheesy, but again, this is campy 78, you got to think of time frame. But when Otis said Luther had the land, and he had all these, he was gonna have a missile land on the San Andreas Fault, have California fall off into the ocean, so he would have all the beachfront properties. Stupidest
Yeah.
and he had all of these cities named after himself, like Casa de Lex, Lex Harbor, Lex this, and then and Otis had written Otisburg in dry erase marker. He said, Otisburg? And he goes, well, Miss Tessmacher got her own place, Mr. Luthor. And it was just this. This was so
That was a spot on impersonation, by the way.
Ned Beatty is so awesome. And so I have a fondness in my heart because of how absolutely, it's like one of those things where you've heard the thing where like he knew the assignment, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody told Gene Hackman, I want you to be the most ridiculously over the top narcissist that you can be, and play it absolutely off the hinge. Just go unhinged. And he did it amazing.
Now,
All right.
he did keep saying in that movie Luthor, right? Like,
that's the other. Oh, it's Luthor. Mr. Luthor. Yeah,
Yeah.
Mr. Luthor. That's
But
the way
he
Ned
doesn't
Beatty
even
said
like
it.
Gene Hackman say Luthor, like I'm Lex Luthor, and
No, that's the thing. He said, because specifically at the end when he rips off his wig, because Superman takes him to prison.
Yeah.
He says Lex Luthor. He said Luthor. But Ned Beatty calls him Luthor,
Okay.
and he puts the "or" on it. That's how. And I don't know if that was supposed to be like a New York accent, like Luthor. I don't know, but yeah, that was different for sure.
Okay.
Also, since we're talking about Lex, absolute shout out, honorable mention to Michael Rosenbaum.
Oh, I was gonna say he's my favorite.
Dude,
Yeah.
dude is amazing. He has a
Yeah.
great podcast, by the way.
He
I don't know if
does.
you've ever seen his show.
I have. Yeah.
But I'm really worried about the new one. The Luthor character looks like a bald Tom Cruise. Like his face has this like if you remember Tom Cruise from Tropic Thunder, like this just weird look, but bald, and he's all mad. And he doesn't look like he has any coolness to him. He just looks like he's just ticked off. I don't know. I'm nervous about that.
I think with James Gunn, at least, like from what I gathered in watching the trailer for the new one and seeing people talk about it, he seems to be going right back to the source material. Like what is it, Green Lantern with like because Fallow or no, who's the big actor who's playing him? He's and he has like the weird haircut, and everybody was like, "What is that haircut?"
Yeah, it's Guy Gardner.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Guy Gardner's haircut.
but then that's actually his haircut, and so
Mhm.
people were. So it just seems like he actually is trying to be faithful to the
As
source material.
ridiculous as most of it
Yeah.
looks
So
and seems. Yeah.
I'm hoping that Lex is good. I mean, again, that shows just I think the generational thing of when you get introduced. Because for me, Michael Rosenbaum is Lex, and I just love how I didn't like Jesse Eisenberg because it felt too much like he's trying to be the Joker or like the Riddler or something.
Yeah,
He's like just
that's the kind of Lex Luthor I don't like. Is
yeah.
like just kind of, I don't know, over the top.
And again, I don't know the comics well enough to know, but to me, Michael Rosenbaum, I liked how he was like cool, collected. He was super smart, super rich, and like you see just how his like progressive. I mean, he early on in Smallville, he wanted to be a good guy. Like he was raised by a narcissistic dad who didn't love him, and then you see him like wanting to be more like that small guy or that small town kid from Kansas, but then just like obviously because Clark was not able to be honest about who he was, their relationship kind of withered over time, and you see that like
And that's the thing, right? I'm gonna interrupt you, but that's
No,
the
no.
thing about Smallville is I think if Clark had been honest, they could have been best friends.
Yeah,
But the parents wouldn't let him be honest.
know.
And again, John Schneider, great. Jonathan Kent,
Awesome.
love him.
Yep.
But I think that's when you're watching it, you have this like internal monologue going, if you would just tell him, things would be
I know.
better. Like if you would just be honest, he could help you.
The thing
But
I
but you
find
won't. Yeah.
the thing I find really interesting about Smallville is you know what ultimately is going to happen and where the relationship's going to end up, but yet for many seasons, I still really liked Lex. And right, it's like the issue of episode like the prequel trilogy of Star Wars, where it's always just that like, well, we know Anakin's going to become Darth Vader, and it's like I don't think they handled that well and like really built any suspense or tension or uncertainty in that. But in this, it's like
Yeah, we hated Anakin the whole time. He was a
Yeah.
jerk. He was jerking he was cute as a kid, but then he was a jerk in part 2. He was like a creeper on
I know.
They
on,
tried to save it with Clone Wars, the cartoon. They
Mm.
really like were like, let's make everyone talks about how great Anakin was and this great general, and like you've seen none of it in the movies.
That's right.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
they went back and like retconned it into that cartoon.
Have you ever seen that? Somebody made a video where it was all of his creepy stuff with Natalie Portman, and they turned it into like a scary movie trailer.
Yes.
It was like, yes, my lady. You know, like when he would look at her going by. It was just a creepy stalker movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious for I put together these character traits. So I don't know if we're going to be able to do this. Let's see if we can do it. If we can figure out or come to some sort of a consensus on the best Superman based on these traits of physical
Like a
traits.
mashup, is that where you're
Yeah, like us right now, or just see okay, who wins the most categories to become who is the definitive if we can. I know it's hard to do, but for us anyways, the Reforming Nerdom with Keith Foskey. Who is the best Superman? So even let's just think right now for physical traits, right? So we have physical traits: tall, muscular, chiseled jawline, height, build. Who do you guys
swirly
think?
hair thing?
Yeah. Okay, first off, really quickly, people make fun of the whole Superman trope of he's Clark Kent and he has glasses and his hair is different and nobody knows who he is. It's like, oh, that's ridiculous. I can say from personal experience, when I take my glasses off, I can literally walk by Nate's wife and she doesn't recognize that it's me.
I was gonna say, take your hat and glasses off right now.
Done.
Right? Like,
That's Superman?
yeah, that's right. And so it's just funny how people say that, but it's like if I cut my hair, I'll walk past our elders and they just don't even know who I am and like, oh, Jordan. And it's
This
not
is-
that unbelievable.
This is where, though, like, just as a side note, this is where I think Christopher Reeves was the best because his disguise was more than just putting on the glasses
Yeah.
and combing his hair the other way. It was it shows you how much you identify a person through their mannerisms.
Yeah.
Right. And
just,
that's
like,
where that
presence,
whole bumbling
overall
thing.
presence,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Plus, he slouched and he switched to being left-handed. If you watch the movie,
No way.
he's right-handed when he's Superman, but he's left-handed when he's Clark. There's a lot of things he did that were subtle differences.
Inigo
That-
Montoya right there.
Dude,
Yeah.
he was amazing.
Yeah, I am not left-handed.
All right. So physical traits. Who would we give this to? Keith.
I say, even though I love Christopher Reeve, nobody looks better than Henry Cavill, and I say that with a 100% absolute staunch record of heterosexuality.
Say no homo. It's fine.
Yeah, unbroken record of but nobody looks better than Henry Cavill. I mean, in fact, in 93, I think it was, when Superman died in the comic, there was an interesting part because when Doomsday ripped his shirt off, he had a hairy chest. Like if you, and I know that sounds like a weird thing to remember, but I have every comic from that year. I bought every comic off the stand, put them in cellophane, and I still have them to this day. Like, that was a huge part of my teenage life. And I remember reading that and seeing his shirt get ripped off, because that normally doesn't happen to Superman, but his shirt got ripped off and he had a hairy chest. And I remember that just being sort of an interesting thing for them to draw in. Well, when you see Henry Cavill in the oil rig burning part of Man of Steel, when he's picking up the oil rig to let the guys get out, and he looks like Hercules. He's hairy chest, big arms. I say that's the specimen of Superman, certainly by look, for sure.
Okay,
Gents,
do you have any objections to that?
Henry Cavill's physique.
Henry Cavill. Yep. All right. Now, in terms of presence and personality, in terms of commanding, a commanding yet kind presence, moral strength and nobility, so just like an embodiment of goodness, symbol of optimism.
So
Boy
is
Scout
this like
energy.
strictly on the Superman side, or is this like
So
Superman
now
and
think
Clark?
about like the character. Yeah, like what? Because all of this is like, well, what actor did these things well? So
But
obviously,
I mean, like when you say presence, are you talking about his presence just when he's being
yes,
Superman?
yeah, as Superman. Yeah.
Did I go first?
Yeah.
Okay. I give this one to Reeve, and I give this to Reeve in the worst Superman movie. And the worst Superman, well, I'm sorry, Superman 4 is not the worst. Superman 3 is the worst, because Superman 3 is a Richard Pryor comedy with Superman stuck in. But Superman 4 has Superman speaking out against nuclear weapons, which at the time was a huge deal. Christopher Reeves did that as a passion project because he was anti-nuke, right? There's a history behind why that movie even got made. But in Superman 4, there's a point where he walks up to the United Nations and makes the announcement, I'm going to rid the world of nuclear weapons. I made the decision. I'm going to do this. But that part is interesting, but there's a better part at the end when he realizes he can't do it, that he can't rid the world of evil because there's always going to be evil in the world. And he's talking in front of some flags, and I forget exactly how the quote goes, but he says, "I wish you could all see the world like I do." And that moment was very powerful in the idea of Superman. I wish you could see the world like I do, because I'm not one of you. I'm from somewhere else. I see the
kind of
world
like
different.
sits above it.
That's right. I can look down and see the world. I see it as one world. It has the capacity for beauty and goodness and kindness and all of these things. I wish you could just see it like I do. And that's
As a
that's a moment.
post-millennialist, that's what he was. That's
Yeah.
what wasn't said in the script, but I mean, he
Yeah.
was getting.
Yeah. Or an
Okay.
optimist, or like I am, like Doug Wilson called me a grumpy post-mill because I'm on mill, so he calls me a grumpy post-mill.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Nate, Ben, do you have any objections to being Christopher Reeves being that?
I have no opinion on any of these.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
I
here
give
for
it to
the
Reeves
ride.
as well. I think that the way that he kind of like, he's encouraging to the police officers.
Yes.
He's like, he talks to the crowd. There's a hero quality to him that I don't think Henry Cavill has, where Henry's always stern, always withdrawn, whereas Christopher Reeves has that sort of cordial, I am a hero, the people of Metropolis love me, and I'm going to take my time to like make sure that they know I love them too.
He like literally
think-
announces like, "Hi,
Yeah.
I'm Superman and I'm here to save the day."
Yeah, seriously, yeah. And,
Well,
and I think that's a hero quality of Superman.
There's a moment in Superman 2 where he stops the subway from going out of control, And because the guy who's leading the subway had a heart attack, and as the firefighters are coming into the subway to help that guy, Superman says, "Gentlemen, can I have just a moment?" And he stands up and he says, "I just want everybody to know our subway system is still the safest and most reliable means of transportation. Thank you." And he flies away. And people may think that's stupid and ridiculous, and it is, but that's what he was. He's like,
Right.
I'm a statesman. I'm
Yeah.
a voice, and everybody now is going to be afraid to get on this train, but they need to realize that this was
Freak
not
accident.
Yeah, this was an accident. Yeah.
So I don't want to derail your game, Jordan, as I often do, but like I think that's actually a really interesting point in terms of, I would say, the declining popularity of Superman. And what I mean by that is that when there was patriotism and trust in the fact that the government had your best interests in mind, Superman being a statesman was good. I remember in actually a cultural studies class when I was getting my English literature degree at university, one of the required readings was The Dark Knight Returns. And in that, you have this confrontation between, an aged Batman and Superman. And Batman began to hate Superman because he had become a pawn of the state. And Superman's sort of rationale was, this is the way the world was going. This is the only way I could still continue to do good. And Batman hated that Superman wouldn't sort of rebel against the corrupt government. And so it's just interesting that as like trust in the government and as government became more corrupt, Superman's popularity, I think, went down because you're right. He was that statesman.
Yeah. By the way, Nate, has anybody ever told you look like Jonathan Silverman?
No, I don't know.
Do you not know who Jonathan Silverman is?
No, who is Jonathan
He played
Silverman?
in Weekend at Bernie's. He was one of the two guys from Weekend at Bernie's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Please, everybody watching this, stop the video, Google Jonathan Silverman and come back and tell me how right I am.
I'll bring it up because even this picture I'm looking at right now, he has his hair kind of like up to the side. He's just clean shaven. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Actually, this one picture, Nate, he looks more like your brother. Yeah, like Johnny. Funny enough.
There you go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's kind of a spitting image of Johnny.
Yeah. And like Keith, for you to know, Nate and his brother are strikingly similar. So much so, which is, funny tale here. I don't know if we've shared this on the podcast, but it's quite funny. Nate and his brother are a couple years apart, but they look very similar. And so on our baseball team that Nate and I are on, there's a friend of ours who we played against Nate and his brother in the past. And
like this going back like 10 years ago.
A long time. But like Nate's brother is very different. And, he
Bit of a hothead, not a believer.
And he gets pretty into baseball. He's a fun guy to play against, but he was being a little colorful with his language, and Nate didn't know that, our friend Luke didn't know that Nate had a brother, so he thought
It was him.
the youth pastor on the team. But then the funny thing is, Luke then started attending Crossroads, and he told me, he's like, "Brother, I'm really struggling knowing what this guy's like on the baseball diamond. Like, I don't know if I can submit to him as my pastor." And so, anyways, that was Jonathan Silverman lookalike. Nate's brother is.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. So
I don't know if I can submit to him as a pastor, knowing that he used to star in Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to do another show just on Weekend at Bernie's. I have a whole lot of thoughts about that movie.
Okay. Well, we will add it to the calendar.
Well, especially it's become so much more relevant during the last year of the Biden administration.
Yeah,
oh man,
who would have thought that
Biden biopic?
Yeah, who would have thought that movie would be prophetic, eh? All right, the third is acting ability and range. This is the actor who could balance Clark and Superman, who had good emotion, gravitas. I think I would say personally in this one, I think Henry Cavill's probably a better actor because I think just acting generally from the 70s to now is just better. And so I think he's probably a better actor, but
I'd give that one to Dean Cain.
See, I don't remember Lois and Clark well enough, so I'm just thinking Christopher Reeves. The reason I like him,
I'm giving them all to Dean Cain.
Well, yeah, we know Ben's. So I just think if we're putting it between Cavill and Reeves, I would give it to Reeves because I think he does the bumbling, foolish Clark, and I think Cavill's is a little easier. His emotional range is way less.
He's like grumpy Superman and grumpy Clark.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Keith, your thoughts?
Well, again, I'm a 78 guy. I love Christopher Reeves as an actor. I love him, and it's Christopher Reeve. I always say Reeves, but it's
Yeah.
actually George Reeves with an S and Christopher Reeve without the S. But I just pulled up a poster I keep on my computer. I know this sounds weird, but actually my desktop is a Superman symbol, and I have a poster of all the Supermen, like all of the guys. So I wanted to look and see which one, like in my mind. And as I'm looking, literally, this is the poster. It's George Reeves, Brandon Routh, Henry Cavill, Christopher Reeve, um, uh, oh man, Superman and Lois. I know his name, but I can't think of it right now. But he's on there, and then Tom Welling and Dean Cain. Who played? Okay, guys, you have to tell me who's Superman and Lois. Because he's really good. He's a good actor.
His name is what is it? Tyler
Hoechlin. Tyler
Hoechlin?
Hoechlin. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I like all of them for different reasons. I will say this though. Here's my honorable mission of the day. Superman Returns was a terrible script with a great actor. Brandon Routh is a
Yeah.
great actor, and here's how I know he's a great actor, because he played Christopher Reeve's Superman.
Because it was supposed to be, right? Like
Brandon,
he was his.
That's right. He was supposed to
Yeah.
be the continuation of that character, and Brandon Routh did a perfect Christopher Reeve homage. That speaks to his acting ability.
I may have to
Because-
go back and watch that, because that
Yeah.
is like I very, very rarely will not finish a movie, even if I don't love it. This is one of the only movies I have shut off like after 20 minutes and just never got. I could not stand the opening of that movie.
Ben, that movie is not good. I'm not saying the movie is good. We're giving credit where credit is due. He's a good actor. The movie suffered from a terrible plot because it tried to capture the idea of Luther with this whole land scheme idea, but it was stupid in 78. It was double stupid in early 2000s when he's going to create his own continent with this crystal from Krypton. And then Superman has a kid. By the way, spoiler alert for nobody who's seen it. Superman has a kid who has asthma, but yet is a superhero. It's like it was like when it's just,
Maybe I won't go back and watch it.
well, and
Which is
it's
funny
got
because it had a great cast.
Kevin Spacey plays Lex Luthor, who is introduced in the movie sitting next to an elderly woman who is telling him that she experienced with him pleasures that she had never known.
Yeah,
And
so
she was 95 years old, and it's the weirdest. Whoever
that's
wrote
what
it,
killed me. It was Kevin Spacey's Lex Luthor that I was like, this is the dumbest thing I have ever seen, and I shut it off.
yeah. So Kevin Spacey trying to be Gene Hackman, the worst acting. Brandon Routh trying to be Christopher Reeve, great acting. Oh, and his catching the plane scene, that was great as far as like just action, because it showed that it's not actually easy to catch a plane, even if you have superpowers. Brandon Routh catching the plane, and it's starting to collapse under him because he's putting the pressure on it, and it collapses in his hands, and he's like, what do I do? Like, I can't really stop this giant missile just by putting my hands on it, because it's just going to crush.
Just physics.
So,
yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I didn't mean to go off on that, but yeah. So
All right, so who do we think it best embodies the range of Superman? What actor? Are we
Sounded
wanting
like
Rev?
Reeve, right?
If we're
Reeves?
going Henry Cavill versus Reeves, then I would go Reeves.
yeah, me too.
Okay.
I just threw Routh in as an honorable mention.
Yeah. Okay. Second last, action and heroics, believable fight scenes, his flying posture, convincing strength. I mean, a big part of this comes down to the director and cinematography, because I mean, you look at Snyder's cinematography for Henry Cavill, like that guy's just straight up flying.
George Reeves.
Okay.
They would
Make
shoot.
the case.
They
Make
would
the
shoot.
case.
They would shoot bullets at him, and he would stand there, and then they'd throw the gun, and he would duck.
Well, in watching Superman 1 and 2, like my wife and I were watching it, and we were both just dumbfounded. I realized it was the 70s, but like the flying just looked so bad.
It's janky. Yeah.
Yeah,
I just love when he like so obviously just goes straight up and down on a wire, like when he comes down onto the balcony and stuff. It's just like, oh man.
Okay, real quick. This is a side thing, but I could not believe that they had a fully nude like 8-year-old in Superman 1.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't believe it. I could not.
You
Like,
just broke Keith.
this,
I think you're muted though, Keith.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I was screaming. Is that so funny? I was like, that's so true. He wasn't like a baby.
No.
He was like, it's like that kid needs to
it
be
was like a
abu-
third
be-
grader.
Yeah.
yeah, like the number of people who had to sign off on that, including his parents. It's just like, how did this happen? So, anyways,
Yeah.
that was a ridiculous thing. So, action and heroics. I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm guessing on a TV budget, most of those TV portrayals were not going to be able to compete with the $300 million budget of Zack Snyder. Is there anybody who can even compare to that?
Nah, it's
right.
Cavill.
Maybe a cartoon, but
All right. So then the last one is just the Superman factor. Which guy just feels like Superman?
Dean
This
Cain.
one's so subjective because I think
Yeah.
what Keith said is true. It depends on when you were born.
Okay.
mean,
well,
Yeah,
So-
it's always going to be Reeve for me, but
we
I
have 2 for
appreciate.
each. We have 2 for each. So we have to cast a deciding vote. So I think what we need to do, because it's not going to be Dean Cain or Tom Welling or the other Reeves, it's going to be between one of those 2 guys. So if we had to give it as a deciding split the different, or to give it to one or the other between Christopher Reeves. Now you got me confused, Keith.
It's Reeve without the S.
Reeve,
Yeah.
Christopher Reeve or Henry Cavill. Who would have the Superman it factor? Just the guy.
I think it's Reeve. I think Cavill's Superman, although I love him, is like a little bit just too much of Batman.
Okay.
Like he's just
Yeah,
like
too brooding.
He's just a
He's
little
dour.
grumpy
Yeah.
and dour and
Yeah.
I
All right,
actually
I'll
would
go
be
with,
okay
I'll
with
go
that.
with Reeve.
Yeah. All right. So as of here you have it, listeners and viewers. The definitive Superman, according to Reforming Nerdom, is Christopher Reeve.
Christopher Reeve with Henry Cavill's body.
Yeah, pretty much. Honestly, like, yeah, just get him a little bit swole
And Zack Snyder's budget.
Oh, that would be pretty cool. Well, just
Maybe
kind of
that's
on
what
that.
we're gonna get from James Gunn. Who knows?
Well, so on
I
that,
don't think so, but who knows?
Keith, how do you feel about the new movie? So I just want to, like, as we were getting ready for this, I was watching through some of the Supermans that then continued Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League. We kind of, my wife and I got into a bit of a rhythm of watching the DC movies. And I know a lot of people hate on the DC universe, the movies that had come out. And I actually now in watching Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman v Superman, I actually think those were really good movies. And I think the problem is everybody was expecting them to be Marvel and they weren't. And I think that was unfair. What do you think?
My problem with the Superman, if I could just very quickly, Man of Steel suffers because it's 2 movies in one. It should have been 2 movies. The Zod character being introduced and the last fight scene, being multiple 9/11s. You didn't have the opportunity to fall in love with Superman for who he was before they knew Superman existed one day before he's fighting in Metropolis and destroying the city. So they didn't have time to fall in love with his character before he's now responsible for killing half the city. And then it makes sense in Batman v Superman that there's a guy who has no legs who's angry at Superman when everybody else is saying he's a hero. That guy is the realest character in the movie because he's like, I hate this guy. This guy brought me, like, my wife left me. I'm here with no legs. That reality, the song they play at the beginning of Batman v Superman, it's a sad song and I forget the name of it, but it's like real. Like the whole dour approach to the whole thing was they didn't let Superman breathe. They didn't let him become a hero And then in the second movie, they're like, "Oh, we lost our hero." It's like, you didn't even have time to make him your hero. Like, how do you mean you lost your hero? Like it's been, you've known him for 5 minutes, right? So, so there was not enough goodwill built up in the original Man of Steel, and then in Batman v Superman, and then Justice League. I do think they were trying to play catch up with Marvel. I don't think they were trying to be Marvel, but I think they were trying to catch up because Marvel was already 20 movies deep into the MCU, and they were trying to create a DCEU, which was just too fast and trying to do too much at one time. Doomsday in Batman v Superman was ridiculous because Doomsday is a character that needs to come way later. I think this is where Superman and Lois did it very well. They put him in at the end rather than at the beginning. There's a lot of things in that I have issue with, just as far as choices in filmmaking. And I think I just went off the rails. What was your question again?
No, so now in like light of that, because that's like, I agree. There's just there wasn't the same vision. Like you didn't have your Kevin Feige in DC the way that you do now with James Gunn. Like he's kind of the grand visionary. They've given him as much authority as Kevin Feige was ever given. So do you think that it can work? Like, do you trust James Gunn to reboot this whole universe to make them good, or how do you feel about it?
Here's my only concern. Well, I have a bunch of concerns, but here's my main concern. With the new movie, there's two directions that you can go in any superhero movie, and when the directions converge, it becomes confusing, and that is when you try to put a superhero character into the real world, right? That becomes the staple of that character. So for instance, 89 Batman, right? Let's do another show on 89 on Batman, but 89 Batman with Michael Keaton, that was Batman in a real world scenario. Like they're putting that's what made it so amazing, was because this could be real. Like he's wearing a suit that had body armor. He's got tools that seem like they're realistic. He's got a gun that shoots a
Grappling hook.
He's not throwing a batarang. He's shooting a grappling hook, and
then we got Mr. Freeze.
But that's a bastardization of the timeline.
I know, that's what I mean.
It started in real life, and then it became ridiculous. Not that any of this is real, but what I mean is, like, Iron Man's the same way.
Yeah.
Iron Man was existed outside of the idea of these other things, right? Like Iron Man is a guy who's rich and smart and can build this suit that seems like it could exist in the real world. And then you get outside of that with Thor and all this other stuff. But Iron Man could be in the real world, theoretically, like this is possible.
And those are all the best Marvel movies, are like Iron Man, even like Captain America, where it's like he's not a interdimensional, like
he's just a guy who got really good drugs, right? Like that's
he's just like on PEDs.
And so that's the thing with James Gunn. When I saw Crypto, my nostalgia side went, ooh, icky poo, right? Like my happy noise, right? Like I was happy to see Crypto, but at the same time I said, okay, that's what we're doing. That changes it for me when I see Crypto, because Crypto's another direction of the Superman mythos that is more playful. Maybe playful is not the word. It's more it's more given to the fantastic. The
you're
strange.
Just losing the realism.
Yeah. And so you got Crypto dragging him home by his cape. That's a cool scene. I like that scene. I like, he whistles, Crypto, take me home. That's emotional. Like I like that. But it takes me back to the old Justice League cartoon. That's what's in my mind is, meanwhile, back in the hole of justice, right? Like you got like that, like if that's what they're going for and that's what I'm looking for, then I'm cool with that.
But I want to split the difference.
That's right. You can't try.
That's my fear.
If you're going to go that direction, go all out.
Yeah.
And if he does, I think it'll be great. But we got to know what we're getting when we walk in. If we think we're getting Batman 89 and we're not, then we'll be disappointed. So
right. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I don't know. I'm not sure what to think, because the actor, whoever they have there, what's his name? I have that somewhere here. David Cornsweet is
Cornsweet, which is just weird.
It's an
That's quite the
unfortunate
name.
name.
Like,
I think you'd get to Hollywood and you would
the
change your
amount of-
stage name.
that's what I was just gonna say. The amount of people that change their name when they get to Hollywood, and that's not one of them, is remarkable.
Kudos to him. He's leaning into it. But if we look at like physical traits, no. Presence and personality, don't really know yet. Acting, like there's like unknowns here, but like I just don't think he's really capturing that Superman it factor. And maybe it's just because Henry Cavill just makes me now expect Superman to be just gigantic and just, have a barrel chest and gigantic arms, and like maybe that's just like an unfair expectation, but he doesn't right now exude that Superman vibe to me. Yeah.
Did you guys see Twisters?
No, haven't yet.
No, not yet.
He's in that. And
Okay.
I didn't even realize he was in that until I was watching I think I was watching CinemaSins. I don't know if you know what that is. CinemaSins. They talk about all the errors in movies. It's literally just, it's like it'll go through and point out mistakes in movies. They call them sins, and it's like, it's a really neat channel.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was watching and they were going through all the errors in Twisters. And it's like, oh, and future Superman here. And I was like, wait, that's him. That's the dude. And
Okay.
and seeing him in
Horn sweat.
Twisters has now been like, wait, okay, I didn't like him in Twisters. So now I'm like, I don't want that to cloud my thought, but I do know he was in there. But he played a dirtbag. So that's the only not cool thing, is in that movie he played the guy who was a jerk.
Well, so that means he actually did a good job, though.
Yeah, if you didn't like him and that's what
Yeah.
he was trying to go for. Yeah, that's true.
Well, Keith, before we get to our last segment where we do our high score and we're going to see just how nerdy you are, is there anything else that you want to say, or any parting words on Superman that you want to share before we get into high score?
Just that, when I was a kid, and I grew up in the 80s, so I was introduced to all these pop culture icons. The one that stood out to me most was Superman, because again, and I said this in the beginning, it was an ideal character. He had the power to make change, and he knew the right thing to do. Like, he knew what was right and did what was right. And there was always the tagline, Superman's about truth, justice, and the American way. In fact, that was the thing they took out of Superman Returns. They took out the phrase the American way, and that was a huge misstep in that film. They should have just not left out the whole line. If they're going to leave out the American way, they should have left out the whole line, because that was a huge turning point. Like, there was a time when Superman was about what was right, and America was trying to do what was right. At least that was the idea we wanted to put out in the world. We're trying to be the righteous man, do the righteous thing, do what's right. And I think that's a good thing to look for. Obviously, we're not saved by our own righteousness. If we want to make it theological and get back to the truth, we are unrighteous and we're unworthy, and Christ is the only righteous one. And there are a lot of people make connections between, the Superman character and Christ, comes from outside the world into the world to save the world. There's a lot of things that could be, analogized there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But ultimately, that we should desire to do what's right and make change where we can. Superman has the power to do that. That's why he becomes the ideal person.
And that should be our way, right? Like, that's the point. It's like, that should be the American way.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, listeners, if you have any objections, or if you think you disagree with us on any of our takes on Superman, please leave a comment, send us an email. You're probably wrong, but we would still love to hear from you. All right. So how about we now transition into high score? Keith, this is our game show of sorts, where when we have guests on, we want to test your mettle as a nerd. And the way that this works is we will have a series of questions. They get increasingly more difficult. Level 1 questions are worth 1 point. Level 2 questions are worth 2 points. Level 3, 3 points. And then there's finally a final bonus question, which is worth 5 points. Now, the way it works is we're going to ask you the question, and if you answer straight up and get it right, you get the full value of the point. If you need multiple choice, we will give you multiple choice questions or answers. And if you get it correct based on that, you get half a point. Currently, just for everybody who's been with us, Ben still has our highest score at 12 points. Nate is at 10.5 points. And Mr. Joshua Hames is at 7 points. So, Keith, are you ready?
I think so. Yes. Let's do
Okay.
it.
All right, here we are. First question, level 1 question worth 1 point. In The Lord of the Rings, who is the main antagonist that seeks the One Ring?
Sauron?
Nate?
No.
Nate, yeah? No,
Is it?
Yes, it is. No, I was just going to say, like, okay. Anyways, yes, that is correct. That is correct.
Are we
Yep.
just making fun of Nate for missing all the level
Yeah.
1 question?
No, I just wanted somebody else to say something. Just
I wanted to
so it wasn't
verify. I didn't know if I was right. That was
No, you were.
That was a guess because that's not my nerd. I'm not a Middle Earth guy.
funny.
Yeah.
No, I
That's
think
so
this
fair.
was a big misstep for Tolkien because I'm reading through right now with my kids. We're into Return of the King, and we're like 2.5 books in. Still, every single time they're like, which one is Sauron and which one is Saruman?
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 2, another level 1 worth 1 point. What is the name of Batman's butler?
Alfred Pennyworth.
Ooh, got the last name
Yeah,
too.
even got the
Well
last
done.
name. I would have accepted just the first name, but yeah, no, that's it. So that is good.
2 points.
So
2 points.
you are now at 2 whole points. We're now going up to level 2. This is now worth 2 points. In Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, what does Yoda say to Luke about trying?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Boom.
Well
That is
done.
correct.
Nailed it.
That is correct. Okay, you are now at 4 points. All right.
We're gonna get nervous.
Ben, he's coming for you. I'm just going to say. He's
Huh.
coming for you. All right. Next question. What is the name of the school in the X-Men series?
Xavier School for Gifted Children.
You got her.
I will accept that. It is for gifted youngsters.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah.
considering that was what, gentlemen, jury, I'm fine
I'll-
with that.
I'll allow
I'll allow that.
I'll
I think
allow
that's Nate.
Yeah.
Nate.
Fair enough. I like Keith, but
Yeah, we'll give it to him. All right. I will accept that. It's at the very least we would give you a half point for getting the bulk of it, but I'm fine. We'll give
6
you.
points.
Ben needs to
If
come
that- if-
off points.
I will say this: if that becomes the only reason I win or whatever, I'll take it away because I don't want to win on the technicality.
Okay.
So-
All right. Well, Ben has the belt and he's had it for a while, so I'm okay seeing him brought down a peg or two. All right. Level 3 questions now. These are now worth 3 points. In Harry Potter, what is the name of Hagrid's giant half-brother?
I don't know. But let me just name a
multiple
character.
choice is an option.
Well, I
Okay.
can give you.
Okay, give me multiple choice. Give me multiple
right.
choice.
All right. A, Aragog. B, Grop. C, Norbert. D, Fang.
I'll go with B, but I don't know.
So B, Grop. That is correct.
Oh,
wow.
I'll
Oh.
take that one because that was shot in the dark. So
Yeah,
I'll
you-
take that. Yeah.
You got partial points. So you got 1.5 points for that.
Yes, we're at 7.5 points, I believe.
You are now tied with Josh.
Josh Hames. He's my
All
buddy.
right.
I like him.
All right. Next question. What is the name of the computer AI in 2001: A Space
Hal.
Odyssey?
Hal. Isn't it
Final
Hal?
answer.
Is that
Just-
not? Is it not Hal in Space Odyssey?
Okay. There's more
That's-
to that.
That's half the answer.
That is a partial.
Oh, okay. All right. I have to take the partial answer because I know Hal. That's
Well, let's give him multiple choice then.
okay. Give me
well,
okay.
multiple choice. HAL 5000, HAL 9000,
Oh.
AI 500, or AI 900.
Hal 9000. I'm gonna be wrong, aren't I? Darn it.
HAL 9000
No,
is
you
correct.
got you.
Oh, it's
That is
correct. Okay.
correct.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
I'm a good
All right.
guesser.
So you
9 points. Whoo, baby.
okay. Then he's coming for you. All right. Next question. In Doctor Who, which doctor was known for wearing a long, colorful scarf?
I'm gonna have to have a multiple choice.
Okay. A,
I
the
don't-
first doctor, B, the fourth doctor, C, the 10th doctor, or D, the 11th doctor?
I would be so lost on this one.
Yeah. I got nothing.
I'm not a Doctor Who. Like I'm a Bill and Ted, not a Doctor Who. If we're talking about like phone booth movies or TV shows,
Ranking the best phone booth
there's,
movies. Yeah.
there's something afoot
Well,
at the
Superman,
Circle
guys,
K.
come on.
Yeah.
Something strange is afoot at the Circle K. I'll go with C as a guess.
The 10th Doctor is incorrect. It is
Okay.
B, the 4th Doctor.
Mhm.
All right. So that was your first
We're
question.
still 9 points.
Still at 9.
Yep.
9 points.
9 points.
All right.
we
So
go.
the last of the level 3 questions. What is the name of the virtual reality world in Ready Player One?
Ooh.
The multiple choice, please.
A, the Matrix, B, the
That
Grid,
one. Yeah.
C, the Oasis, D, the Nexus.
C, the Oasis.
Well done.
That is correct.
Nice.
That is correct. Okay, he is officially tied with Nathaniel P. Wright.
10
Get
and a
this
half.
I don't know about this. I'm mixed. I want you to take down Ben, but
See, I think
so 10 and a half. So if you get multiple choice, he takes me, right? Gets him
does.
to
2.5. He'd be at 13 points.
So even if you get it with multiple choice, you take the crown.
Okay, but this is not an easy question. This is Ben Jammin sourced this question, and this is a good question. In Final Fantasy VII, what is the name of the town where Cloud and Tifa grew up?
Okay.
Are you familiar at all with Final Fantasy VII?
I'm not a gamer, so no.
Okay.
You asked me my favorite gaming system. I said Nintendo NES because that's the last one I owned.
ask him a
Okay.
Duck Hunt question.
Yeah.
He's done well with his deductive reasoning to nail some other.
true.
Yeah, give me the multiple choice and I'll give it a shot.
All right. A, Nibelheim, B, Midgar, C, Wutai, D, Junon
Junon.
is incorrect.
Okay. I knew it wasn't Midgard. So.
All right, there we go. Yeah, Midgar is like the place where like the big
That's
bulk
Thor.
of the story.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there it is. There you have it, everybody. Keith Foskey has now 10.5 points. He is tied with P8. So Ben, congratulations. You retain your crown for another day.
We
Keith,
did it.
Yes.
well done.
Well, thank you. I did my best and I was bested, so that's cool.
No, that's good. Well, we are very thankful
Thanks for
your
not flipping
brother.
the table, Keith.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks for not flipping the table.
No.
Yeah. Well, Keith, this was a privilege. We're very thankful that you were able to join us, brother. It was a lot of fun. Why don't you just, before we wrap up, why don't you just remind everybody where they can find you?
Well, the best place to find me is just keithfoskey.com. You can, from there, look at everything that I do, serious stuff and comedic stuff. You can go to my YouTube channel through the website and all those different things. So just Keith Foskey, KeithFoskey.com. You can come buy a shirt like this one that says, "Hey, warning, I'm just barely saved." This is one of the shirts that I sell because it's a joke in our men's group, because when we get around with other men and we'll be joking around and stuff, we'll say, "Hey guys, I'm just barely saved."
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah,
Very cool.
go check it out.
Very cool. Well, brother, we're thankful you came, and you know what? You gave so many ideas for future episodes that I think we would be foolish to not get something in the calendar for a later date. So thank you for that. And listeners, just want to thank you for joining us as always. Just a reminder that you can subscribe to our videos on YouTube, check us out on podcast services, and also we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. But until then, stay nerdy.